Reforma migratoria. Un aliado. Abogado Borja. 718 La Migra. 718-526-4472.
Hello. Today I'm going to discuss citizenship in the United States in terms of how the application process goes, the requirements for citizenship, and how the approval process works. 1. The primary ways that people gain citizenship are either through A. birth in the United States, or B. applying for citizenship and having your application approved by USCIS. I will only be discussing the second of these means of gaining citizenship. 2. The first thing that a person must do in order to become a U.S. citizen is fill out an N-400 application of naturalization. You can obtain this application from the USCIS website, www.uscis.gov. Now I will discuss the eligibility for citizenship. A person can only apply for citizenship if the person is a permanent resident and at least 18 years or older. The duration of time that a person must be a permanent resident before he or she can apply for citizenship depends on how the person actually obtained his or her permanent residency. If a person acquired permanent residency through marriage to a U.S. citizen, the person can apply for citizenship 3 years from the date the residency was actually acquired. In the event the person applies 3 years after acquiring residency the application will require that he or she demonstrate that he or she is still married and still living in a marital union with the U.S. citizen spouse. USCIS will require substantial documentation to prove that the marital union is still in effect. In the event that the person acquired permanent residency in any way other than through marriage, the person can apply for citizenship 5 years from the date the person acquired his or her permanent residency. With both the 3-year threshold through marriage to a U.S. citizen, 5-year threshold, the actual application can be sent out 90 days before the threshold has been satisfied. For example, if the person acquired permanent residency through marriage, the person can submit the application 2 years and 9 months after having acquired permanent residency. Accordingly, a person who acquired permanent residency in any other manner can submit the application 4 years and 9 months after having acquired permanent residency. The next issue I will discuss is the physical presence of the individual in the United States. In order to qualify for citizenship under the 3-year threshold for spouses of U.S. citizens, the person must have been physically present in the United States for at least 18 months out of the 3 years immediately preceding the date of the application. That is exactly 1/2 of the 36 months required to apply under the 3-year threshold. What this means is that the person traveled outside of the United States, but not more than for an aggregate of 18 months. For all other individuals applying for citizenship, the person must have been physically present in the United States for 30 months out of the 5 years preceding the date of applying for naturalization. That is exactly 1/2 of the 60 months required to apply under the 5-year threshold. These physical presence requirements are very strict, and USCIS will look to determine the total duration the individual has been out of the country. They will look at a person's passport to look to see his or her exits and entries into the country and the time that he or she was out of the country. In the event the person was out of the country for more than the duration requirements, the person will be ineligible for citizenship at the time of the application. The next requirement is that the person must be able to read, write, and speak English and have knowledge and basic understanding of U.S. history and the government of the United States, known as civics. I will discuss a little further later when I discuss the application interview process. Finally, the person must be of good moral character. An applicant for citizenship must show that he or she has been and continues to be a person of good moral character. In general, the person must show good moral character throughout the 5 years period preceding the date of the application and previous to the oath of allegiance. Therefore, any arrest that a person may have may possibly disqualify the person from eligibility. If you have an arrest, you should see an attorney about the effect that the particular arrest may have on your citizenship application. There are light crimes, i.e. urinating in the street, riding your bike without a helmet, and there are serious crimes, drugs, theft, etc. Each case has to be analyzed specifically to determine a person's eligibility for citizenship. Now I'll take a little bit of time to discuss the N-400 application. The N-400 application will ask the applicant some general background information. For example, his or her address, his place of birth, when he or she obtained his or her residency. They will also ask in detail for the applicant to indicate the dates of travel for trips that he or she has taken during the immediate 3 or 5 years as applicable. As I already indicated, USCIS will look to determine the amount of time the person has spent outside the country. They will also ask whether the person has any prior arrests. As I indicated, USCIS will look to determine whether the person qualifies as a person of good moral character. Therefore, as I said before, any arrest could disqualify the person. In addition, the application will ask you various questions about your support of the United States Constitution and your patronage of the country. As for the interview itself, you should be prepared to submit all the documents USCIS requests, which are generally your passport, permanent resident card, and any other documents they may request. The applicant should be prepared to review the application entirely with the USCIS officer and update any answer that may have been previously given on the application itself. For example, if the person has moved, if the person has been married subsequent to the submission of the application, the officer will then ask you to take your civics exam. The applicant will be asked 10 civics questions, of which he or she will have to get 6 correct. This test is not that difficult, given that the 10 questions that will be asked are obtained from 100 possible questions, which are readily obtainable from the USCIS website. So in effect, if the person puts to memory the answer to the 100 questions provided by USCIS, the person should easily be able to get 10 correct. As for the English portion of the exam, the individual will be asked to write 3 very simple statements, such as, who is the President of the United States? I pay taxes. The President of the United States is Obama. It should be further noted that with the exception of certain individuals that have been residents for a certain number of years and are of elderly age, the entire interview will be conducted in English and an interpreter will not be provided. Assuming that the person passes the civics and the English portion of the exam and the interviewer has to do no further background checks on the individual, the officer will generally notify the person if they have been approved for citizenship. Generally, within 2 weeks, assuming you were approved for citizenship, you will receive a letter from USCIS advising you of when you should go to your oath of allegiance ceremony. I wish all of those seeking citizenship good luck in their application process, and I highly encourage it given the substantial rights are afforded as a U.S. citizen. Once again, good luck. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at 718-LA MIGRA, which is 718-526-4472. You can go to my website at www.718lamigra.com or visit or come by our office at 8740 Britton Avenue, 2nd floor, Elmhurst, New York, 11373. Thank you.
Reforma migratoria. Un aliado. Abogado Borja. 718 La Migra. 718-526-4472.